Hello Amazfit fans, my name is Joe Minoretto. I'm an algorithm developer with Amazfit, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about how to improve your running. First, we're going to talk a little bit about volume control. One of the main things you can do to improve your running and reduce the chance of injury is really control how you increase the amount of miles and speed that you run per week. One of the main tenets is really over time, you should start low in terms of your mileage and gradually increase it up. And really this slope should be something relatively low, let's say about 5% per week. If you go too high, and for instance you start higher with your mileage and you also ramp up too quickly, you're eventually going to get injured, and that injury will cause you to cut short the amount of time you're able to run until you recover from that injury, and that's going to bring you back a few weeks at least. And so you really want to take care here. And similarly, in terms we can do that with miles, and once you've really built up a good base of mileage over several weeks and months, then you can look at this from the aspect of speed. And speed, again, even though you're running many miles, you can start at 5-6 miles an hour and then gradually go up in speed over time. We really want to stick to something like 5% increase per week. That'll really help us control. So you need to set a goal for yourself that's realistic and something that you really stick to, because you might get too enthusiastic and run too fast, and that's when you get injured. So also in volume control, we can talk about schedule. There's many schedules out there for how people want to really diversify and how many times a week they want to run, how many miles. And there's a lot of good ideas out there. Some of the things I would generally suggest is that you have at least a few rest days per week, at least 2, maybe 3 rest days per week, where you really take it easy and it gives your body a chance to recover. Specifically, your tendons are a part of the body that take a lot of load during running, and sometimes they take up to 48 hours to recover mechanically. And that's something that we really want to consider, because you really want to run for a long time. Lastly, in terms of how we schedule and how do we really balance out running slow versus running intense, a lot of studies have looked into how to manage this with elite athletes, and they find that at least 80% of your training should be very slow, steady endurance running, and you can leave 20% of it to running faster intervals, high intensity lactate threshold sort of runs. But you really should keep most of it to slow and steady. Lastly, think about incorporating some weight training or resistance training into your routine. This helps reduce the chance of injury, and also, especially with plyometric training, where you really explosively jump and explosively land, can improve your running economy and actually make you a better runner. So, one of the main next tenets we want to talk about is how weight factors into how well you can run. Overall, we can consider something like BMI, your body mass index, as a good indicator of how hard it's going to be for you to run at a certain speed or maintain progression without getting injured. And just generally, if you have a higher BMI, whether it's from increased fat or increased muscle, for your height, the chances of you getting injured increase. And that's primarily because you may have the energy to go run a certain speed, but now with the additional weight, the impact forces on the body are higher, and that requires more loading to your muscles and tendons. So you have to take care that if, based on your BMI, maybe you need to adjust and lower your speed and lower the mileage at the beginning of your training, just to better be conservative and so you don't get injured. Another thing about body types is we all come in different sizes, and aside from managing injury, these different shapes and sizes actually affect our running form. And if we go into a form based on the body sizes, our form actually, for most people, studies have shown, actually run with a relatively good form for their body, and meaning that their running economy, how efficiently they run, is pretty well optimized for their running, for their body style. Excuse me. For instance, a lot of studies look at elite athlete runners, such as the Ethiopian and Kenyans, who have very skinny frames and very thin legs. So their ankles, their calves are very light, and they run at a very high cadence. And so cadence is where the feet are moving very quickly, step by step, whereas someone with heavier legs may have to run with a lower cadence. And if you run with a lower cadence, then you'll have a greater stride length for a given speed. And stride length is, if we look at this diagram, basically the distance between when you land with your right foot and when then you land again with the right foot the next time. So ways we can improve form, while some of these variables are kind of built into our body type, there are ways to change our form and improve it. One of the main things we can look at is our stance during running, especially at contact with the ground. And what we want when we land on the ground is, ideally you want your leg to be in front of your hip, but not too far in front of your hip. If you feel like your hip is too flexed and your knee is too extended at its range of motion, then you may be more likely to get injured. It's more impact force on the body, and that's something we generally want to avoid. Now, there's been a lot of studies in terms of what foot position should you land with. There are studies now that propose landing with your forefoot or with your toes. Other studies show midfoot or heel have different benefits, whether you're looking at injury or running economy. Because of these sort of varied responses, we really kind of want to suggest starting with a general midfoot landing position. And over time, if you feel like you want to experiment with different ones, then that's something you could do very gradually again. If you change your running style too abruptly for too long, then again, just as with volume control, something can get injured quickly. Lastly, people do really try to consider how to reduce impact forces on the body. If that's something you're interested in, some of the suggestions we can give include landing with your forefoot, staying in a more crouched stance when you run, and kind of pulling up in your leg when your foot's about to smack the ground. While these may reduce the amount of impact force, keep in mind they may actually make it harder for you to run and require more energy. So there's a balance between those two worlds. And so if you consider doing this, please take caution and take it easy. Lastly, our magical ball. What do we predict for the running wearable market in the near future? What I predict to happen will be beneficial to our users is having wearable devices that are intelligent, that track multiple parts of the body at once, and are able to communicate that feedback back to the user in terms of coaching, and really help them manage their running in real time and over weeks and months. So for instance, if we're able to track what our core is doing as well as our foot, then that could give us better insight in terms of our running mechanics, and notice if there's any changes in terms of fatigue that's affecting your running mechanics, and notifying you to make sure that you don't suddenly change your posture too quickly. Excuse me. Well, I think that's all for today, so thank you for your time.